Welcome to the Red Sneaker Podcast, your guide to success in the worlds of writing and publishing. Now, here's your host, best-selling author and founder of the Red Sneaker Writers Center, William Bernhardt.
Hello, Red Sneaker Writers. This is episode 29, going out on October 7, 2019. This podcast is for Red Sneaker Writers, people who are serious about having a writing career and want some practical knowledge to help them do it. My interview for this podcast is with my favorite writer in the entire world. Wait for it. My sweet wife, Lara Bernhardt, author of the Wantland Files series, but she's got a new book out that just hit the stands, Shadow of the Taj, which is a complete departure for her in both genre and characterization, which is something she has always done so well. So I wanted to talk to her about how do you do that? How do you make the characters so rich and lifelike and interesting? And I mean, I know what she says around the house, but who knows what she'll say when the microphone is turned on. So hang around for that interview. I think it might be something special. But first, the news. As I'm recording this podcast, I am just back from St. Petersburg, Florida. Yes, home of Daniel Pike, but also home of the Novelists Inc. convention, which I just attended. It is one of the finest conventions for professional writers held every year. It's a great organization. I was president of Novelists Inc. about, 5 million years ago or something like that, and has grown by leaps and bounds ever since. Always fun to hang out with this fantastic amalgamation of traditionally published writers, indie published writers, hybrid authors, all of them quite successful. And, you get a chance to talk shop with people who know what you're talking about and can actually tolerate to hear you talking about books and whatnot. It is a professional organization, though, and to get into Novelists Inc., you have to meet certain criteria for books and publishing and how much you've gained in royalties. So I realize that not everyone listening to this podcast likely attended or even would be eligible to attend. So I'm going to make you so grateful you listen to this podcast. I'm going to bring back the biggest and best announcements of the conference and give them to you right now. Starting with Kobo had some really impressive announcements to make during their session at the conference, which was led by Tara Kremen. Are you familiar with Kobo? I've mentioned them a few times before, but not that often. I think sometimes when people hear the word Kobo, which, by the way, is an anagram of the word book, that's where the name came from. It's basically the book company. Anyway, they think of the device, which was popular for a while, less so now. They don't realize there's a company beyond the device, but there's a whole publishing platform called Kobo Writing Life, which many authors are using either in addition to or instead of the KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing engine at Amazon. Kobo was actually founded in 2009. Originally, they were the ones who brought the first electronic reading device, but they've moved beyond that. In 2011, they were bought by, I'm probably mispronouncing this, Rakuten, a Japanese company. That's why it's now technically called Rakuten Kobo. 2012, they instituted the online platform I just mentioned, Kobo Writing Life. 2013, they decided to go global. They acquired the Sony platform. Remember those reading devices some people had? Acquired Waterstone, giving themselves a reach far beyond just the United States, or for that matter, even Japan, which is why a lot of authors are using Kobo as their platform because, Amazon might be great in the areas of the world where Amazon is selling books, but what about the rest of the world? Many authors are using Kobo to get that global reach. 2015, Kobo purchased Overdrive, which, as you may know, is one of the, if not the principal distributors of ebooks and electronic audiobooks to libraries. So what's the big announcement from Kobo? Well, as of this week, first formally announced at the Novelist Inc. convention, they are adding direct audiobook uploads to their service. Now, in addition to uploading your books through that Kobo Writing Life platform, you can now upload audiobooks. And they're offering a 45% royalty rate, which is better than you might get from certain other unnamed companies. Well, why is this advantageous? Well, one, I've already mentioned, global reach, getting your audiobook places that other people aren't selling to or through. But also, you may remember reading that Kobo is the one supplying ebooks to Walmart. When they decided they were going to get into the ebook business, they needed somebody to funnel books to them. They chose Kobo. That's a great advantage for people whose books are listed at Kobo. Well, now you can expand that to audiobooks. If you've been listening to this podcast for any period of time, you know how audiobook sales have exploded exponentially in the last several years, and that exponential increase seems to just grow and grow more every year, no signs of stopping at this point. And so now Kobo is making themselves basically an audiobook distribution platform. Big news from them. What other news came out at Novelist Inc.? Well, there was a great session handled by Draft to Digital, who I've mentioned before. You may have seen or heard or talked to at WriterCon this year. They've been for some time adding universal book links, making them available to their customers on the Draft to Digital website. What universal book links are is basically one stop, one place where you can get a book link that you can put in your newsletter, perhaps in your advertising, on your web page to sell books wherever they're available. Draft to Digital, of course, can distribute your books to Amazon, but also to all the other places, all the other online retailers like Kobo, like Barnes & Noble, like Apple, many others, where books are sold online. Well, now by using one of these universal book links, you can get that link, put it on your website or wherever you want it, and people have the option of buying your book from wherever they want to buy it from. Not just one store, but many. So what's the big news? Well, guess what Draft to Digital is now adding to their universal book links? You guessed it, audiobook links. Just like Kobo is recognizing the huge growth of audiobooks, so is Draft to Digital. Now, Draft to Digital isn't even distributing audiobooks. They partner with Findaway Voices, a very great company that works with Draft to Digital in tandem. But despite the fact that Draft to Digital itself doesn't actually distribute those audiobooks, they're making the links available. So those universal book links just became even more universal. One last bit of news I want to talk about. This came from the BookFunnel session that was run by Damon Courtney, a terrific, entertaining, informative speaker. What Damon talked about was how BookFunnel has now the ability to do things you may not have realized. Just in case you don't know, BookFunnel's primary business is creating landing pages, like for your website, for instance, so that authors can sell copies of their own books if they wish, without having to deal with all the collect the money, pay the taxes, ship out the books if they're physical books, or even if they're not, ship them electronically for ebooks. It's a lot of kind of busy work that some authors don't have time for. Well, BookFunnel takes care of it for you. And they've become hugely successful. The session at Novelist Inc. I sat through, and when Damon asked how many people here are BookFunnel customers, I tell you, I think every hand in that packed room went up into the air. This is a company that serious authors are using. Well, what's new? Well, I'll give you 3 guesses. 1, no, you've already got there, haven't you? Audiobooks. Now they're making it possible for you to share audiobooks using the same kind of functionality that BookFunnel has already made available. For instance, now, even if you don't want to sell the entire ebook, would you like to share samples? Maybe as an advertising gimmick. Here's a snippet from my new audiobook. Or maybe you want to do some kind of special exclusive recordings just for fans or just for patrons or whoever. Do a holiday greeting for everybody, whatever seems fun. BookFunnel is going to make that much easier for you now because they'll handle the distribution for you. They can do books too. Let's say you want to give away a book. Let's say you want to make it possible for people to easily download a book. They can do that for you. You want to send advanced reading copies to reviewers. Give them the list. They can handle that as well. One thing that I thought was particularly cool that Damon talked about was combining a business card with a code that makes it possible for people to download a free book. Speaking for myself, I often am in a situation where somebody says, "Oh, I'd like to read one of your books," or "That sounds interesting, and I wish I had a copy to give them, but I never do." Good grief. And the Uber that I rode to the hotel for the conference, all the way there, the driver was talking to me about books and how he loves to read books on his Kindle. "Oh, I'll look up this Last Chance Lawyer thing." Wouldn't that have been better if I could have just given him a business card and said, "Here's a code. Just go online, use that code, and you can download the book directly to your Kindle, Mr. Uber driver." Well, I think that would be cool, particularly if it's a book that you're okay with giving away, or it's the first book in a series you're trying to draw people in, or you just want to make a connection. You know, maybe the Uber driver will remember. Maybe he'll forget you 10 minutes after you've gotten out of the car. But if you've given them a card, you've made a much more concrete connection. And I thought that was a great innovation from BookFunnel. For the writing tips section, I wanted to report on another session I attended at Novelist Inc., this one by the wonderful Sarah Cannon, basically trying to help authors get control of their lives. And I understand where she's coming from. As I said, most of the people at this conference are serious writers. They're full-time. They treat it like a job. They may put out multiple books a year. They may have other jobs as well. I'm sure you can relate to this as well as Red Sneaker writers, because most people who are aspiring or just starting as a writer can't, unfortunately, afford to do that full time. You've got another job or two or three, plus looking after the kids or looking after the house and things that keep you busy. And the truth is that doesn't change too much, even after you've obtained a certain level of success. I think we're clear on the fact, that I'm a writer, right? But I also teach quite a bit at various retreats and conferences and whatnot. And I put together WriterCon each year, which happens over a weekend, but requires a year of planning pretty much. I edit other people's manuscripts. I run a publishing company. We have real estate and investments that I manage. You getting the idea? There's more to life, unfortunately, than just writing a book. So how do you keep from having major anxiety and just going nuts? Well, that's what Sarah was talking about in this session. And what she recommended were basically 4 Ps, because they all start with P, kind of like my 5 Cs to superior writing, which you've read about in the Red Sneaker books. Anyway, her 4 Ps for getting control of your life are: 1, picture your ideal life; 2, prioritize; 3, plan; 4, perform. So let's just talk through those for just a second. Everybody listening to this podcast: 1, picture your ideal life. What's that look like? Well, I suspect writing might be a part of it, because why else would you be listening to this? But get more detailed. What would it look like? Would you still be having some kind of day job? Would you still teach or watch the kids, or would you get somebody else to do that? What kind of book do you want to be known for? What path to publishing do you want to pursue? What's going to make you happy? The more concrete you can make this, the more likely you are to obtain it. So I would suggest even getting out a pen and sit down and write it down, or tell someone about it. Put it into words. What is my ideal life? And I bet you know where you go from there. How do I get there? What am I going to have to do differently?